YouTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer. Today, let's chat. Are spoilers a bad thing? Spoilers are this big deal to a lot of people. You don't want to get spoiled. A lot of people put spoiler tags on their thing when they do a book review. They tell you if it's non-spoiler or spoiler because people care. I honestly don't really care about spoilers. And my brother-in-law actually told me a long time ago, like a couple of years ago, about this study that showed that people who are spoiled for a book or movie actually tend to enjoy that book or movie more than if they hadn't been spoiled for the plot. They didn't know it was coming beforehand. And when he told me about that study, it made a lot of sense to me because that is kind of how I am. I have never really cared that much if I was spoiled for something. So I just kind of wanted to talk about both sides, like why don't I care? And maybe other people, I know there are other people out there who don't care about spoilers very much, so why would that be? What are the advantages there? Versus why are some people so passionately against spoilers and why is it such an emotional thing for them? And then I'll finish by telling you exactly where I stand after looking at both those sides, even though I kind of already told you that I don't really care about spoilers, but I can talk more about that at the end of the video. And drop me a comment below letting me know which side of this issue you are on. Are you one who religiously guards against spoilers, or do you not really care that much? So on the side of spoilers being a good thing, or at least not really mattering that much to people, like I mentioned before, if I can find the study that my brother-in-law was telling me about, I will link it down below. I think it's really interesting that people who know the plot beforehand enjoy it better than people who didn't. And I think this is a question of anticipation versus surprise. If we don't know that something is coming, then we are surprised. And if it is set up with enough anticipation, then that surprise is really great. That's what makes really good plot twists really good plot twists versus plot twists that are kind of like, well, that's not a good plot twist because we could never have seen it coming. The anticipation is a really big deal. And I actually think that anticipation is more important than surprise. If you can foreshadow well enough that your audience is anticipating, I think it's a bigger deal than trying to come up with a twist that no one is ever going to see coming. Although, if you can combine the two in a brilliant way, then that's obviously the best. But that's why I think that spoilers actually can enhance an experience, because if you know the plot, then you can anticipate some of the things that are coming. And that kind of brings me to like talking about rereading, because I know there are some people who don't like to reread. My husband is one who doesn't love to reread books or rewatch movies. I am the one who watches the same Christmas movies every year for the nostalgia of it. I have, reread Ella Enchanted so many times I could probably just write it down without even looking. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly what people are going to say. I have my favorite lines from the book memorized and stuff. But I still could go back today and reread it and absolutely enjoy the experience. And it's because I'm not reading it to find out what happens. I'm reading it for a deeper experience. And I think that's part of what spoilers do. Rather than, if you're spoiled on something, rather than watching it to find out what happens, which is a totally different experience, you're reading it to get a deeper experience there. You're there to meet, get to know the characters better, to revisit some of your favorite places, to explore the ideas and the themes that are woven throughout the book, and to catch some of the foreshadowing and the setup that leads to some of your favorite parts of the book. This anticipation of being able to pick up on the foreshadowing and just the events leading up to some of my favorite parts, that's one of my favorite parts of rereading. It's one of the reasons I love rereading Mistborn. Mistborn had a twist in it that the series, not the first book, but the entire Mistborn trilogy, had a twist in it at the end that I did not see coming. I had guessed every possible outcome and not the actual outcome, but when I go back and I reread the series, it's so obvious to me and I can see the foreshadowing and the setup, and I just think, man, this is so brilliant. And I love that feeling of the anticipation and being able to pick out the pieces that are leading up to the big reveal at the end. And this all goes back to experience and what you're looking to get out of the experience that you're having with the book or the movie or whatever medium it is that you got spoiled for or don't want to get spoiled for. I think that when you're reading a book that you've been spoiled for, it's a totally different experience. Spoilers can actually add their own different kind of mystery to it, which is more of a anticipation type of mystery rather than a surprise mystery. So rather than going, oh, what's going to happen next? How is this going to end? what's going to happen, you know, and then being surprised by what happens or trying to anticipate it and getting it right or wrong. Instead, we're going, okay, we know this thing is going to happen, so then how is that going to happen? When is it going to happen? Oh, is this the time that it finally happens? Is this when this person dies? Is this the scene? You know, is this when they get together? Is this the scene? And it adds it's like we still don't know everything, but we have the anticipation because we know what. You can kind of see this in mysteries. There are different kinds of mysteries, and one of them is like a whodunit. And the whole time you're trying to figure out who it was, and you have no idea until the reveal at the end, you know. But then other books, they actually tell you who did it at first, or even they show the person committing the crime in the first scene, and then the rest of the mystery is just figuring out how they did it. And it's a different kind of anticipation, a different kind of suspense and mystery. And I think that spoilers can do that for, at least for me. Sometimes that's what spoiling a plot does for me. Instead of being suspenseful about what's going to happen, I instead am anticipating, when is this going to happen? How is it going to happen? And I'm excited for certain events to come up. You might have experienced this, even if you religiously guard against spoilers, if there has been any like famous book or really old book or something that people talk about, like Jurassic Park or Harry Potter or Star Wars. There are things that people talk about that are just part of our culture now because it's so well known and has been around for so long that if you didn't read that as a young child or when it first came out, then you've probably been spoiled for it. That's the experience of anticipating something because you've been spoiled for it. It's just simply a different blend of anticipation and surprise. Moving on to the side that spoilers are bad, one of the things that I have heard from people is that spoilers are actually really distracting for them. Rather than anticipating and really enjoying that anticipation of, oh, is this the scene where they're going to die? It's actually distracting for them. Instead of being able to just watch and enjoy and be like, okay, what's going to happen next? They're like, wait, is this the scene? And they're always trying to dissect it. Is this going to happen next? And instead of being able to enjoy what's happening on the screen or in the book, they're like constantly questioning whether or not something that they know is going to happen right now. And so it's distracting for them, and so then of course they don't actually have a good experience having been spoiled for the plot. Something else that it can do, spoiling, I think, can actually lessen an emotional impact. Especially, I think you could see this somewhere like a death. Let's say you know that a main character dies later on in a book or series, then you're going to not be as attached to that character, and you're going to be questioning the whole time, are they going to die here, are they going to die here, rather than just being like, oh, I'm so attached and I have all these feelings for this character, I love this character so much, and then bam, they die, and then it's this emotional thing for you. So I could definitely see being spoiled about something like a death lessening the emotional impact that that could have on you. Although I think that that's not necessarily true, but I could see it happening to people. Another thing I've heard is that it's really annoying when people put in a lot of work to try and avoid spoilers for an upcoming release, and then someone spoils it for them, even though they're being really careful. And I can see that because they've put a lot of work into it, and so even though they can still have a good experience with that book, they have put in all of that time and effort, and now that time and effort has gone to waste. So of course they're going to be upset because not only are they getting a different experience than they wanted, but they also lost all of that effort that they had put in trying to have the certain experience that now has been foiled for them. One of the things about spoilers is once you know it, you can't unknow it. And I think that's part of the hard thing about spoilers. Like, if we could see the spoilers and then be like, oh, I actually don't want to know that spoiler, then people might not be as worried about it if you could actually forget about it, but you can't. That's not how it works. And the last thing that this made me think about was, have you ever wanted to just go back and experience a book for the first time? I have. I wish I could go back and read the Harry Potter series for the first time. Or Ella Enchanted. I wonder what it would be like to experience that book for the first time, but I have so much baggage with it, and baggage in a good way. I love both Harry Potter and Ella Enchanted. I have so much nostalgia and so many emotional ties to the books that it's impossible for me to look at it unbiased now. I read it as a child, and obviously I can highly, highly recommend both those books for children, and I still recommend them for adults, but I don't actually know how much an adult would really like them because I've never read them from an adult's perspective. And I think that in a way spoilers kind of do this. Spoilers sort of rob people of their chance to experience a book coming at it like from a fresh slate. Like I know some people who won't even read the blurb. All they see is the cover and the book, and they've heard someone recommend it, or they just like the cover and they read it and they want just a blank slate. They don't want any expectations going in. Spoilers, you can't do that. It ruins that. It gives you expectations. It gives you, so you just can't just go in and experience it the way that you want to, because again, it changes the way that you experience it. Okay, so my take on this. So obviously, this is a very personal thing because it's all about what you want out of your reading experience. And I totally respect and understand people who don't want to get spoiled for things. I really do understand that. I might not understand it on the same emotional level as they do because of course I am coming at it from a different perspective, but I do understand kind of their reasoning, and I can put myself in their place and understand why they would want to avoid spoilers. For me too, I think it really depends on the kind of spoiler that you are getting. Like one of the things that I don't think people should spoil for you is deaths, because I actually think that deaths are a very important part of a book and usually come as like a plot twist type thing. You're not really expecting it, and they can be really emotional as well. I also think that mysteries, you shouldn't spoil mysteries because then you're robbing the person of the chance to try and figure it out themselves, which for me that's one of the fun parts of a mystery, is trying to figure out for yourself who did it or why they did it or whatever the mystery is. Another one is a love triangle. In a love triangle, a lot of the tension in the plot comes from who are they going to pick, who are they going to end up with, you know, and knowing who they're going to end up with takes away some of that tension. And later, if you reread it, then the tension isn't there, but you get the anticipation of knowing, you know, exactly how it plays out and your favorite parts of the love triangle and stuff. But if you're only spoiled on who they end up with in the love triangle, then it kind of ruins that. And some love triangles this isn't as true for, but like for example the Hunger Games, I feel like the Hunger Games is a big one that you don't want to be spoiled for who she ends up with because it's such a big part of the story. So another one might be twists. People talk about twists all the time, and I honestly think that twists are a little bit overrated because like I said, I think the anticipation is more important than the surprise, and twists are all about that surprise. There are some twists that I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't want to spoil that. And I don't think that people should go out of their way to spoil twists, but I also am like, there are some twists that I wouldn't really care if they got spoiled for me. So just to give you an idea, some books that I don't think spoilers really would matter that much, like you could know the whole plot and it wouldn't really ruin the experience for you at all. So like the first Harry Potter book, the Selection series, most historical fiction because we basically know what's going to happen because it's history. Something like The Martian, where you don't really know what's going to happen, but you basically know what's going to happen at the end of the book, at the beginning of the book. Or something like Jurassic Park, where, you know, everybody already kind of knows about it and there's not a lot to actually spoil. Obviously I could go on, but I'm just going to leave it there. Some books that I'm personally glad weren't spoiled for me though include the 7th Harry Potter book. So while I don't think the first Harry Potter book it would matter if you knew the entire plot, although there is that twist at the end of the first Harry Potter book. I kind of forgot about that. And I will say that my 5-year-old, when we read Harry Potter, that twist at the end, it got her. She was like blown away. I was so happy. It was basically her first plot twist that she had encountered, and it was hilarious and super fun to watch. So I guess I don't know, but the 7th Harry Potter book, I feel like the ending is just the kind of ending that you need to experience for yourself. So if somebody told you about it, it'd be really weird. And you might not even want to read the book, but then you read the book. And other books, the Mistborn series, like I said, that one blew my mind. The Lunar Chronicles series actually had a pretty good kind of surprise at the end that I really enjoyed discovering. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie blew my mind. It's the best Agatha Christie book I've ever read. It was so good. And one of my very first plot twists that I was kind of blown away by as a really young teenager was Ferris by Gail Carson Levine, and I'm glad no one spoiled that for me because it's fun to experience plot twists that are really well done and just be blown away by it and then go back and reread it and see how you could have guessed it the whole time if you'd been really, really paying attention. So basically, can you be spoiled and still enjoy the book or movie or whatever you're trying to experience? Absolutely. Absolutely you can. Is it a different experience? Yes, a very different experience. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you want to go to a new release that is just out and you're way excited for it. You don't want to be spoiled. Totally understand that. Most of the time, I don't really care about spoilers very much. That's just kind of always been my stance. And now I better understand why, because I do enjoy anticipation more than surprise. So ultimately, I don't think spoilers are a bad thing. I think that it is entirely up to you whether you think spoilers are bad or not though, because it totally is a personal thing that is dependent upon what experience you are looking for. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you think about spoilers. Was there anything in this discussion that was especially interesting to you? And let me know which way you lean on spoilers. I would definitely love to hear from you. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for more writing content. I try and do writing advice every single week, as well as a let's chat or vlog type video each week, and that's currently my schedule, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on all of that content. Thank you so much for watching this very long video. I will see you in my next one.